It's time for my 2024 winter camping gear list. This gear will keep me warm down to minus 40 degrees with no fire, only the heat from my body. That's pretty crazy to think about. I've tested most of this gear down to minus 40, even minus 50, but I have some new pieces of gear for this winter that I've been testing out. And on this trip, I'm making the final determination as to whether this new gear is gonna make it into my ongoing winter camping gear list. So let's start unloading the pack and see what I like to bring on my winter camping trips in order to be safe and comfortable. I'm gonna start with my down jacket, which I keep in this big zippered pocket here, so it's easy to access in case I need it when I stop for a break, or in case of an emergency, I can throw this on and get really quick insulation. It's starting to get cold out right now, so I'm gonna throw this on and stay warm over the rest of this video. The down jacket's made by Decathlon. It's really affordable for what you get. Box baffle construction, very lightweight, tons of features. I love this jacket for my winter trips. Starting with what's on the outside of the pack, we have my shovel here. I don't bring a big aluminum shovel on most of my trips unless I know the snow's gonna be really deep and I'm gonna have to be doing a lot of digging and snow moving. But this Snowclaw shovel, which is only $20, very lightweight, gets the job done most of the time. I can use this to shovel snow up against the side of my tent in order to provide a wind barrier and provide a little bit more insulation, or I can use it to dig myself a little chair or just kind of clean up my campsite a little bit. I find that this is all I need for the majority of the trips that I go on. On the other side of the pack here, I have my water bottle. This is an insulated koozie from Nalgene. It has a zippered top here and then reflective insulation on the inside. It keeps the water from not freezing, so it's pretty essential in the wintertime, especially if you have extra water kind of around your pack. And then I keep it in HDPE Nalgene. The HDPE is quite a bit lighter than a standard Nalgene, that's why I use it. For my more accessible water, I keep it in this Platypus soft bottle, which I just store inside of my jacket in order to keep it warm and from freezing. It also makes it so it's a lot easier to access it. On most winter packs out there, you're not gonna have side pockets that are easy to reach back and grab water from. The pack itself is the Mountain Hardwear AMG 75. I've been using this pack for many years now. It's been my go-to. I've been looking for a lighter pack because this one isn't the lightest at over 2 kilograms, but it has a ton of features that make it awesome for the wintertime. You have a ton of different straps. You can strap snowshoes to it, other items depending on what you need. You also have this crampon pocket on the outside, and then that zippered pocket where I stored my down jacket is also great for storing Avi gear, which is really nice if you're going on a trip where you are having to bring a shovel and probe. It also carries a ton of weight. I've had 50 pounds in here. It's not fun, but it can carry that weight comfortably. On the bottom of the pack, I have my Nemo Switchback foam mat. This has a few different uses. First of all, it's obviously extra insulation on the ground. R-value is additive, so I put this underneath my sleeping pad, and then that adds about 2 R-value to the warmth of my entire sleep system. It's also great to put on a chair in order to add some insulation to your butt and back. Or if you're building a chair by digging a hole in the snow, then you can put this down and then not get your butt really cold. I also really like it as a place to change. I'll put this down in front of my tent or just inside a little bit and then step on it in order to change into my sleep clothes. Underneath the brain of the pack, which we'll get to in a second here, I keep my chair. This is the Nemo Elite chair. So this is a new item for me that I'm gonna be trying out for the winter of 2024. I've used it a bunch during 3-season conditions, but not in the wintertime. What I really like about this is it's a lightweight chair, but then the case for it doubles as a ground mat. So you can attach the ground mat to the 4 legs, and then it provides a lot of surface area so that if you are setting it up on snow, then you're not gonna sink into the snow and just basically be sitting on the snow. So I'm excited to try this out, hopefully in some deeper snow a little bit later in the winter. I'm on the fence about whether this is gonna replace my Helinox ground chair as my go-to winter chair, because the ground chair is nice in that it has that surface area, but it's also shorter so you can sit in it inside of a tent a lot easier. I really like the brain of the pack. It has a ton of space and you can loosen up the straps quite a bit so you can have the brain sitting up really high and stack stuff underneath it if you are going on a trip where you need a lot of gear. It has 2 pockets. You have one pocket up front here, which I like to use for my keys and wallet, and then you have another pocket, a bigger one up front here. And I keep a lot of stuff that's kind of smaller that I don't want to get lost inside my pack, as well as things that I want to have access to a little bit quicker. We'll just run through everything as I pull it out. First of all, we have my FlexTail Tiny Pump. This is in order to inflate my sleeping pad without introducing a lot of warm, moist air from my breath. It also has a lantern on it in order to act as something to hang inside my tent to provide some light, especially when it gets dark in the wintertime. Really early, it's nice to have that feature. And then it also doubles as a backup light. I have some hand warmers here. Something that I started doing last year was always bringing hand warmers on a trip, either for myself in case I misjudge the temperature. I can just open these up and sneak them into my sleeping bag and stay a little bit warmer. But where I've used them more often is when I'm out with other people and they get really cold, because not everyone is good at judging how cold they're gonna be in certain temperatures. So I have these just in case someone needs them in order to stay a little bit more warm and a little bit more comfortable. This next one's a really cool one. It's a battery bank from Nitecore called the Summit series. This is a 10,000 milliamp battery bank. But what makes this awesome is that it can operate down to -40. The reason it can do that is because it has a built-in heater. Once the temperature drops to a point where it's starting to impact the battery, that heater turns on and the battery is able to operate at those extremely low temperatures. I have my first aid kit in here just in case I get injured. First aid kit's pretty standard. I have my pee bottle. So this is a collapsible Hydro Pack bottle that I use. If it gets really cold and I don't want to get out of my sleeping bag, I'll pee into this and then kind of dump it outside the tent. It can be a little gross, maybe a little messy if you're not careful, but I've never had any incidents. And it's something that I think is really important, if not essential, when temperatures drop to -30, -40, because at those temperatures, you don't want to be getting out of your sleeping bag and getting a chill, because it's going to take you a very long time to get warm again. This one's 750 milliliters. I did a bunch of testing at home into different measuring cups in order to see how much pee I produced kind of on average, and it ended up being around 600 milliliters, so I have about 150 milliliter buffer with this bottle. A lot of people will use Gatorade bottles as well because they have the wider opening, but I like the collapsible nature of the Hydro Pack because I don't always need the pee bottle, so it's nice to have something that doesn't take up a lot of space in my pack. I also have a WAG bag in here, so this is in order to poop in the wintertime when the ground's frozen. You don't want to just be kind of pooping all willy-nilly, so the WAG bag's a way to leave no trace when you're out on your backcountry trips, and something that I highly recommend. I always bring a WAG bag because it's a lot better to be pooping in this and carrying it out from a leave no trace standpoint instead of pooping on the snow and then that snow melting in the springtime and running the poop off into the streams and rivers that we then are drinking out of. I have my inReach Messenger SOS satellite communication device. I like the inReach Messenger because it's really good from a battery perspective. It has a bigger battery than the inReach Mini 2, and then it also has reverse charging. Batteries do not do well in the wintertime, but with the inReach Messenger, if my phone battery is acting up, I can use the reverse charging feature in order to charge my phone from the inReach Messenger, especially if there's an emergency. You don't want to be dealing with batteries dying. My Diddy bag is in here as well. There's a whole bunch of different items in here, like my headlamp. This is a new item as well. This is the Black Diamond Deploy. I like this because it's very lightweight, still has 325 lumens of power, but then is USB-C rechargeable. Basically everything I have now is USB-C rechargeable, and for you iPhones out there, you're gonna be USB-C rechargeable too soon, so congratulations on that. I have my toothpaste tabs. Toothpaste tabs are great in the wintertime because they don't freeze like regular toothpaste does. My toothbrush, charging cables. I've been using the InCharge 3-in-1 cable. It's 6 grams, has USB-A on one side and then USB-C on the other. But then you also get micro USB and lightning just in case you need that in order to charge some of your devices. I've been really liking this little charging cable. It's probably one of my favorite pieces of gear for 2023. I also always bring a thermometer that can track the temperatures over the course of the day and night. With this little one from ThermoWorks, I can see what the low was overnight. So if I do get cold or if I'm too warm, then I can see what the temperature was and then adjust accordingly for the next trip. I also keep a toque in here just in case I sweat a lot, my head gets cold. I can just grab this once I get to camp and throw it on. I'm actually gonna do that now because it is getting a little bit chilly. That's everything on the outside. Let's dive into the inside of the pack and really see a lot of the fun stuff in here. Right at the top, I have my cook kit. This is a 2-liter Toaks titanium pot that I have with a lighter. Having a lot of capacity for your pot is important in the wintertime because most of the time you're melting snow and it takes a lot of snow to get a little bit of water. So the more snow you can pack into a pot in order to melt it, the better. I also like the Toaks 2-liter pot because I can fit my entire stove system in here. For my stove this year, I'm using the MSR WindPro 2. In the past, I've been using the MSR Whisperlight, which is an awesome stove, but it's a little overkill for most of my trips. I like to use canisters in the wintertime because they're just easier. And the WindPro 2 is a great winter camping stove because you can invert the remote canister and then you have a preheating tube in order to heat up the canister fuel in order to operate at really low temperatures. If you're getting down into -20, -30, you need a stove like the WindPro 2 or the Whisperlight because of that remote inverted canister and then the preheating tube. The big reason I'm going with the WindPro 2 over the Whisperlight on most trips, I think, moving forward is because of the weight. It weighs almost half as much as the Whisperlight. In the pod, I also have this little stand in order to invert the canister easily. I have a full medium-sized canister in there, and then a windscreen and ground sheet for the stove in order to provide a little bit of extra kind of insulation and wind protection as I'm boiling water or melting snow. Then I have my food bag in here. Nothing too special in here, just a bunch of freeze-dried food, snacks, but I do have this koozie from Packback Designs. It is made with Apex insulation. You put your freeze-dried meal in there, and then it allows it to stay a lot warmer as it rehydrates. You can also take this and put it inside your jacket if it's really cold out in order to keep that freeze-dried meal extra warm. As usual, I definitely have my pink titanium spoon, essential piece of kit for winter trips in order to stay warm and safe. I then have a trash compactor bag in order to provide a waterproof kind of barrier for all of the things that I want to stay dry. Right at the top, I have my sleeping pad. This is the Thermarest X-Therm sleeping pad. I'm gonna put all my sleep system aside. We'll talk about it in a second here as to why I went with this sleep system and why it's so effective, even once you get down to those extreme temperatures like -40, or like I said, even -50. I then have my clothing. I'm only gonna go over some key pieces, but right at the top, I have one of my favorite pieces of winter camping clothing gear. These are booties, expedition booties from Mech. They're basically the Canadian REI. They use synthetic insulation and then have this gaiter that provides a lot of height for the boot. So if you're tromping through snow, once you've changed into your camp clothes, you're not gonna be getting your legs all wet and dirty. And yeah, just an all around amazing piece of kit. They don't run super warm after you kind of compress the insulation on the bottom. So I grabbed some felt insulative insoles, cut them up, stuck them in the bottom in order to provide a little bit of extra warmth. This bag are all of my winter camping clothes. I have my base layers in here, my fleece layers, some down pants, as well as some stuff to keep my feet nice and toasty warm and some mitts for my hands. If you want to see everything that's in here, as well as all the gear we're talking about today, then I'll have links to everything and a full list down in the video description. And then we have the rest of my sleep system kind of stuffed down in here. I'm gonna get my sleep system set up, and then like I said, we'll run through it. Before we get into the sleep system, let's talk about this tent because I am very excited about it. It's the Black Diamond Mega Light 4 tent, and it has a lot of very good things going for it. First of all, it's not very expensive. It's $400 US, including the center pole, which we'll talk about in a second here. That's much less expensive than the previous tent that I was using on winter trips, the Hyperlite Mountain Gear Ultimate 4. And you're not sacrificing too much weight going with this tent over the Ultimate 4. It only weighs 813 grams on my scale, and then the center pole, which is carbon fiber, weighs 320 grams. It's actually really nice to come with a center pole because on some trips, I want to be using a center pole just for that extra stability as opposed to lashing my two trekking poles together. It's made with 30 denier polyester, which is awesome. I'm glad it's not made with nylon. Nylon, when it gets wet or moist, it starts to stretch and sag, whereas polyester doesn't have that problem. And when you have this much surface area on a tent, that makes a big deal. You're gonna get a lot of sagging and lose a lot of interior space with a nylon tent. You get one big door at the front here, and then a vent up top, and enough space for 2 people. It's advertised as a 4-person tent, but no way. This is an easy, roomy 2-person tent just because of how steep the sidewalls are. You're not gonna really be fitting 4 people into a 4-person pyramid style tent like this unless they're all very tiny people. For the sleep system, we have a sleep system that I've spent years dialing in, and I've tested down to -50 degrees Celsius. This exact system that I'm about to show you now. It includes quite a few layers as well. Base layer, fleece layer, some down pants, down jacket. But this system right here will get you down to -30, -40, no problem. On the base, we have the Nemo Switchback, which we already talked about. And then on top of that, we have an inflatable insulated sleeping pad. It's the Thermarest X-Therm, and there's no other pad on the market right now that I trust as much as the X-Therm in order to keep me warm in extreme conditions. It also has one of the best warmth to weight ratios out of any sleeping pad out there, which is a really nice bonus. I would carry a lot more weight to be as warm as I am when I'm on the X-Therm. I use a pillow during wintertime conditions. This is one of the new pieces of gear that I'm using for 2024 as part of my winter kit. This is the X-Ped Mega Pillow. It's been my favorite pillow for 3-season use, and I think it's gonna be a great pillow for wintertime because it has a little bit of insulation on top, which is very important when you're sleeping in cold temperatures, and then is nice and wide. So as I toss and turn with my sleeping bag, I'm not gonna kind of fall off the pillow over the course of the night. My sleeping bag is the Thermarest Polar Ranger. It has a -20 degree comfort rating. There's a few features that really make it stand out compared to the competition. First of all, it's pretty lightweight for how warm it is, and I think it sleeps a little bit warmer than its advertised rating due to having a lot of internal draft tubes around these armhole areas, which are great for venting and releasing a little bit of heat if it's warmer than the sleeping bag is kind of comfortable at. And then the armholes are also nice if it's very cold out and you want to kind of hold up a book or do some tasks around your tent. You can just stick your arms out and not have to fully get out of your sleeping bag. The Polar Ranger also has this snorkel, which keeps a little pocket of warm air around your face, which is really nice when it's getting cold out. And it also helps with moisture management because it's made with a synthetic material. It kind of directs moisture away from your sleeping bag so that it's not collecting in the down that's going to be compromised by that moisture. On top of the Polar Ranger, I have an Enlighten Equipment Revelation Apex 50-degree quilt. You can get whatever temperature rating is going to make sense for the trips you're going on. I think 40 and 50-degree top quilts are kind of a nice balance between bulk, weight, and warmth. It's important to get a synthetic top quilt because as you sleep throughout the night, your body is producing water vapor. That water vapor is traveling away from you through your sleep system, and then eventually it condenses into water. Ideally, that water vapor condenses into liquid on the surface of your sleep system, but sometimes it happens inside of the insulation, and you want that happening inside of a synthetic insulation and not a down insulation. If that was happening inside of the down sleeping bag, then that'd be compromising the down and you'd be sleeping a lot colder. So for me, as soon as temperatures start getting below -15, -20 degrees Celsius, I'm bringing a synthetic top quilt pretty much all of the time, and then I'll just adjust how warm my sleeping bag is or the quilt that I'm using underneath the top quilt, depending on the conditions I'm going out in. Go check out this video, which is my first winter camping trip of 2024, where I'm using a bunch of this gear and kind of dialing in my systems and testing out whether all this gear is going to work for 2024.